It all began on a lazy Saturday afternoon, the kind where time feels like it's moving in slow motion. I had just finished a long week and was looking forward to nothing more than hanging out at my best friend Daniel's place, playing video games, cracking jokes, and escaping the weight of real life for a while. His home had always been a second home to me. I knew every creaky stair and every chipped mug in their kitchen. But on that day, the familiar felt different. Daniel had stepped out to grab some snacks, leaving me alone in the living room. I scrolled through my phone absent-mindedly when a soft voice called from the hallway. "Hey, can you come here for a sec?" It was Elena, Daniel's younger sister. I hesitated. Elena was usually quiet around me. We'd shared polite smiles, a few awkward exchanges over the years, but nothing close to a conversation. Curious, I stood up and followed her voice to the slightly ajar door at the end of the hallway. When I pushed it open, I was hit with a surprise I hadn't prepared for. Inside the room weren't just Elena and her soft smile, but two other girls, both seated on the bed, their eyes fixed on me with unreadable expressions. They looked around my age, maybe a little younger, dressed casually, but with a certain confidence in their posture. One of them gave a small wave. The other raised an eyebrow like she was sizing me up. I suddenly felt out of place, like I'd stepped into a scene where I didn't know the script. "Don't just stand there," Elena said, motioning for me to sit on the chair in the corner. "We were just talking and, well, your name came up." I sat slowly, my mind racing. There was an undercurrent to her tone I couldn't quite decipher. Was this playful? Serious? A joke I wasn't in on? The girls exchanged glances. Elena leaned forward slightly, her eyes catching mine. "You've known Daniel forever, right? So I guess you've known me for a while too." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "Yeah, since you were, 13? She smiled. "And now I'm not 13. The room felt warmer suddenly, but not from the sunlight streaming in. It was the kind of heat that came from being in unfamiliar territory. I laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood, but their gazes didn't waver. At that moment, something inside me shifted. Not entirely fear, not entirely excitement. Just the distinct feeling that something important was beginning. Elena tilted her head and asked, "Do you ever wonder what girls talk about when guys aren't around?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. I didn't know it then. But stepping into that room was like stepping onto a tightrope, and I had no idea what waited on the other side. The silence that followed Elena's question was brief but heavy, like the moment before a storm touches down. Then one of the other girls, Lana, I later learned, giggled and reached for a small box on the nightstand. "Let's play a game," she suggested, holding up a stack of cards with handwritten prompts. "Nothing serious, just questions, dares. That kind of thing." Elena shot her a look but didn't object. The third girl, Maya, shrugged and said, "Sure, why not?" I shifted in my seat, uneasy. Shouldn't Daniel be back soon? Elena smiled without showing her teeth. "We'll be done before he is. Besides, what he doesn't know won't hurt him." The phrase landed awkwardly, but I stayed quiet. There was a strange energy in the room, like I'd walked into a test I hadn't studied for. Still, I couldn't deny the thrill simmering just under my uncertainty. These girls weren't just talking to me. They were focusing on me. The cards began circulating. The questions were light at first. Favorite food, most embarrassing childhood memory. Laughter broke out after each answer, and bit by bit, I relaxed. Maya teased Lana about a childhood crush. Elena recounted a story about sneaking into a concert. Then the questions got more personal. When the card landed in front of me, Lana read it aloud with a mischievous grin. "Who in this room do you think is the most attractive?" The air seemed to thin. I hesitated. My eyes flicked between them, but inevitably returned to Elena. She wasn't smiling anymore, just watching me, calm and unreadable. I began, voice cracking slightly. "I've known Elena the longest, so probably her." A subtle shift occurred in that moment, like the game had moved into a new gear. The girls exchanged a glance, one of those silent conversations that happen without words. Elena's expression softened. You think about me like that? She asked, voice low and almost playful. Not in a weird way, I replied quickly, trying to sound casual. I always thought you were smart. And yeah, beautiful too. For a moment, I thought I'd said too much. But Elena leaned back on her elbows, her eyes never leaving mine. Interesting. The conversation moved on, but the air had changed. Questions now came with longer stares, and dares were laced with subtle flirtation. I was no longer just a guest. I had become the subject. It felt exhilarating and unnerving all at once. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just harmless fun anymore. But I stayed. I played along, and every time Elena smiled at me, I told myself it meant something real. I had no idea I was being drawn deeper into something far more complicated than a game. The room had quieted. The laughter from earlier had faded into something softer, more intimate. I sat there, heart thudding, unsure if the pull I felt toward Elena was imagined or real. Her eyes kept catching mine, lingering longer each time. The other girls were still present, smiling, whispering, but the energy had shifted entirely between Elena and me. Then, as if orchestrated, Maya stood and announced she needed to take a call, slipping out of the room. Lana followed a moment, later murmuring something about checking on the pizza delivery. That left just me and Elena, the door softly clicking shut behind the others. She stood up and walked to the window, her back to me. You surprised me, she said, voice quiet but steady. I blinked. About what? That you picked me. I always thought you saw me as a kid, just Daniel's sister. I used to, I admitted. But today, I guess I saw something different. She turned, arms crossed gently in front of her. And what is it you think you see now, Sheke? Was a trap of a question, but it didn't feel malicious. More like she was testing me, curious. I met her gaze, steadying my nerves. Someone who's not afraid to take control of the room, someone who knows exactly what she's doing. She tilted her head, amused. Do I? You do, I said, leaning forward. But I don't mind. She stepped closer. The air between us was charged, heavy with possibility and risk. Her voice dropped low. You know this could make things complicated with Daniel. I know, I said. But I didn't start this. For a second, I thought she might close the distance completely. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, the door flew open. Daniel stood there, eyes wide, face twisted in shock and confusion. What's going on here? Elena stepped back immediately. Daniel, wait, it's not what you think. But the damage was already done. His eyes bounced between us. Her flushed cheeks, my stunned expression. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. My best friend? Really? I stood, trying to explain, but he cut me off with a raised hand. Don't. Just don't. Then came the sound of muffled laughter. Maya and Lana reappearing, phones in hand. I caught a glimpse of a video paused on the screen, me nervously answering the earlier question. My stomach dropped. You filmed that? I asked, disbelief thick in my voice. It was just a joke, Lana said too quickly. We didn't mean... You used me, I said quietly, looking straight at Elena. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Daniel turned away without another word, leaving the door wide open behind him. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was hollow. The weight of what had just happened hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. I stood frozen, unable to move while Elena avoided my eyes. Maya and Lana awkwardly retreated to the hallway, their giggles replaced with whispers and regretful glances. But it was too late. The damage had been done, publicly, carelessly, and beyond repair. I stepped out into the hallway, searching for Daniel. I found him in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter, his back turned. His shoulders rose and fell with sharp, shallow breaths. Daniel, I said, my voice breaking the tense silence. Let me explain. He didn't turn. You don't need to. I didn't know they were filming. I didn't know they were planning any of that. I thought it was just a moment between me and Elena. That made him turn. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from sheer disbelief. Exactly. You thought something was happening with my sister, and you didn't stop it. You just went along. I didn't have a defense, not a good one. It didn't start out like that. I was caught off guard. I didn't mean to betray you. He laughed bitterly. But you did. There it was. The truth. Whether it was my fault or not, the line had been crossed and there was no way back. Elena entered quietly, arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller than before. No longer the confident girl from the room, but someone who had pushed things too far and couldn't undo them. I never meant for it to go that way, she said softly. It started as a game, then it got out of hand. Daniel didn't even look at her. You used him to prove some point? What kind of person does that? She opened her mouth, then shut it. The silence was louder than any answer she could give. I turned to leave, heart heavy. I think I should go. Daniel didn't stop me. Neither did she. As I walked home, everything felt surreal. The trust I'd spent years building with Daniel was gone in seconds. What I'd thought might be a connection with Elena was nothing more than a cruel experiment, one that exposed my hopes and made a mockery of them. In the days that followed, Daniel didn't return my texts. Elena never reached out. The group we used to be, friends, siblings, familiar faces, disbanded without a word. The betrayal cut deep, not because of romance or attraction, but because it came from the people I never expected to hurt me. Love, or what I mistook for it, had come wearing a mask, and when it slipped, the truth left scars. And just like that, one impulsive afternoon unraveled years of trust, leaving only silence in its place.